listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and George Kurtz.
It's a big draft last night for the USFL. If you didn't see, they took quarterbacks first. 8 quarterbacks selected in the draft last night. Michigan Panthers selected former Ole Miss and Michigan quarterback Shea Patterson. Jordan Tiamu, that played in the XFL, was also selected. Kyle Aletta, Ben Holmes. The list goes on and on. If you want to break down the USFL, you bring on one of your own that covers the league better than anybody. Mike Damergis joins us. He wrote a book about the early days of the USFL. Mike, I mean, what did you think about the draft last night?
Well, it wasn't exactly Herschel Walker back in 1983, let's be honest. It would have been nice if there's some TV coverage. Basically, I'm getting all my information online, Twitter, and everything. I thought Fox did a nice job in bringing NFL legends on. Michael Strahan did the Generals. I don't know if you saw that. Drew Brees did the New Orleans franchise, the Breakers, and you had Terry Bradshaw. You had Warren Moon do the Houston franchise. I thought that was good. I thought it would have been nice to be televised here.
Yeah, I think the one thing about, the television having the networks involved, and maybe it was a cost perspective, would they get enough sponsors to obviously cover it? I agree with you, but the one thing I think that this league does have an opportunity to do, especially with Major League Baseball now on hiatus, no spring training, they have an opportunity to hit the ground running at least early now, right after March Madness, is that people are dying for football. And when you look at the other league a couple of years ago, the XFL, I feel like they failed without buying people into maybe higher scoring games. Do you think the USFL will buy into, trying to capture viewership early by having higher scoring games and more competitive action than what we saw in the XFL?
Well, they better do that, because if they want to hold the fans' attention. See, the thing the USFL has that the other leagues didn't have, brand awareness. There's people above 40, 45 years old. They know what the USFL was. You talk to anybody, and I have a Facebook page that has over 3,000 fans on it, and they are diehards. They love the league. They are passionate about the league, and there's a lot of enthusiasm towards the league. So they have that brand awareness. And yeah, you need to have some offense. And look, I've been watching the Jets for 40 years. Probably 30 of those years, they've had bad teams. Can it be any worse what I'm going to see in the NFL that I'm going to see in the USFL? I mean, the Jets are a minor league team. Let's be honest. The Bears, when was the last time they had a good quarterback? They're a minor league team. The Lions, the same thing. And that's originally where the USFL came in. They came into cities where there were some bad teams. The Giants and Jets were bad when the Generals started. So they fueled that back in Houston. They had the Gamblers were exciting. So they fueled that in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay Bandits used to outdraw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the time.
All right, Mike, so let's treat this like your little Mel Kiper here, Topic ESPN. Who are the winners and losers of the draft last night?
Well, I think the Jets are the losers. I mean, they get a quarterback that's 5'10". Let's be honest about that, at 200 pounds. I mean, Ben Holmes at Tarleton State, a handful of NFL players come from there. I mean, no matter how excited Michael Strahan was when he made the announcement. I think when you look at Michigan, they look like they hit a home run, and they got a proven coach at least. I mean, a lot of people aren't crazy about Jeff Fisher, but he's a lot better when we see in the NFL with the Giants and Jets and other franchises in Jacksonville with the Jaguars with Meyerson down there, Urban Meyer, and you can't get any worse than some of those coaches were, right? When you look at Jeff Fisher.
Yeah, I think that's good that they do have recognizable names. I agree with you, Mike, in terms of they mixed in some major college players with some minor college players, community guys. So we'll see how that plays out from the players' perspective, from the fans' perspective, because I think we are in a disagreement, at least here on the network. I've heard Scott Wetzel say that it's a terrible thing to see these games all being played in one location of Birmingham, Alabama. And I disagree. I actually think it's a college area. The people will come out, even though it's 8 teams that maybe they're not associated with from a location perspective, the fans will want to see football, especially now with college football being on a hiatus for the next 6 or 7 months.
I think fans will make the pilgrimage there of from outside the state, but for how long and how much can it be sustained? I really don't like the idea of playing in one location. I understand it because of the COVID situation. Maybe that was in their thought. But I think teams want that home cooking. They like that home kind of feel. And how many times you're going to have a home fan base, and how many fans are going to attract from the area of Alabama, too, for all these teams and all these games. So I'm not crazy about it. I like the idea of being in Canton for the playoffs and the championship game. That's kind of exciting. That seems like a natural fit there. But as far as all the games there, by year 2, if there is a year 2, they have to be in the home cities. They absolutely have to.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And I didn't think about the COVID. It's one of the reasons why they're going to play all the games in Birmingham. But my next question would be, assuming they're going to have a year 2. Now, you already answered one. You think they have to play all their teams in the home stadiums, whatever, the home areas. What other changes do you think are going to have to be made or need to be made in order for this league to succeed?
Well, they've got the television contracts, which is the biggest thing. And then you're going to have to get in some big names. You're going to have to try and bring in some big names because you're not going to have the wow factor that you had with the original USFL. Do you bring in take a chance on a Johnny Manziel at some point? Possibly. Can you lure a Phillip Rivers out of retirement? Maybe. Who knows? But they've got the TV contract, and that's the biggest thing. And then that's the thing that killed them back. Almost 40 years ago was when they had the contract in place. When they decided to go to the fall schedule, that nixed the TV contracts, and that was pretty much Donald Trump's doing. We know Donald Trump isn't involved this year, but they had a lot of innovations in the USFL. They went in test markets back in the 80s. You went in Phoenix and in Jacksonville at the time. There weren't teams there. The two-point conversion, instant replay. So they brought a lot of innovation this time. I don't know what other innovation they could bring this time around, because so much has been explored with the XFL as well. Some of their ideas have been taking place. The one thing the NFL does is they take the best of what they get from defunct leagues, and they've done that through their 100 years of existence.
They could do the ball chip, Mike. Ball chip and the laser first down marker, which has been argued on the network. I don't even want to get into that because that's our guy Blue. Mike Blewett, in terms of football full circle, has been crying. He's been crying for that for years. No, George?
Oh, he's right. Mike Blewett's 100% correct. But I don't think they're going to – I mean, Damergis, you can tell us, I don't think they're going to do anything like that here because of the cost. But I love Joe's idea. Would they ever? How much of a cooperative crossover would there be with the NFL to have them try things out like this? Like you think about baseball. I know they're not playing, but the minor leagues, they sort of try different things. Let's try the robot umps. Let's try moving the mound back a foot. Let's try this. Let's try that. Do you ever think there would be that where the USFL would try things that the NFL wants to see how it would work in a game?
Why not? Why wouldn't they? Absolutely, they should try everything. This is work with the NFL. Try different things. You talk about offense. Maybe do the thing where the defensive lineman or a foot or a yard off the offensive line where they have to step back. You got to protect the quarterback. It's got to be a quarterback's league. You got to have offense. You got to show things. Maybe have it where the defenders can't touch the wide receiver within the 5 yards of the line. You know what I'm saying? So they got to try different things to get the offense going because you can't watch it 3 and outs. I've watched too many years of 3 and outs with my team in New Jersey, and I'm sick of it. So you got to have some offense here.
I agree with you, Mike. And now the gambling perspective, right? We are a gambling station. We cover it on all sports. And the ability to maybe potentially gamble on the USFL. They eventually had lines up on the XFL, and a lot of, like, the first 15 games, I believe 2 were overs and 13 were unders. And I think that's where they lost viewership, because when people are gambling and they want to see entertaining games, they want to see points, that's what buys people in, not just to the gambling perspective, but the potential for the league to be there after year 1 and 2 respectively. So we'll see how that plays out. I know you wrote a book about the early days of the USFL. Tell us a little bit about it and how it can maybe benefit fans in terms of understanding the heritage and pageantry of these 8 USFL teams today.
Well, basically, the book was written back in 2007, and I talked to several coaches, Jim Mora, players like Bobby Hebert, Jim Kelly, and basically it was the impact that the USFL had on the NFL at the time, and you talk about players like Reggie White that went to the Hall of Fame, Gary Zimmerman, the offensive lineman, Anthony Carter, and the Redskins, how they invested in the USFL, and a lot of those players, Ricky Sanders, Gary Clark, Doug Williams, were critical in those Super Bowl runs they had in the late 80s. And if you go to the website too as well, USFL Online, you can see that you could hear the interviews that I had with the former players on there and coaches. And I recently spoke to Chris Palmer, who was former Giants offensive coordinator, actually a quarterback's coach. And he talked to Walt Michaels, and Walt Michaels told him back in the 80s, look, $17 million is being bet on the USFL. If we could get to $35 million, the league's going to survive. So gambling is a critical part of it. And, back when the XFL was around, New York didn't have gambling yet. So now New York has gambling. So it's a critical part of it. I love the history of the USFL. It brings me back to good days. I used to go to the games in the USFL. I remember when the Meadowlands was packed with players and
30 seconds to go.
40,000 fans screaming at the games.